Hello, everyone. Well, that's the first time I get the I can't believe it's not butter on the introduction. Thank you for your attention, which is actually one of the most valuable things we have right now in the world. And I want to start with this number, 35,000. 35,000 is the number of decisions that we make every day. Do you remember the 35,000 decisions you made yesterday? No, not even 35. Can you imagine 35,000? So what happens is that these decisions get influenced, they are nudged from external factors that influence why we do the things we do. And I really fell in love with this thing called behavioral economics because I wanted to be better at making decisions and also influencing others' decisions. Behavioral economics is a way of looking at decision making from the lenses of cognitive psychology. I like to call it how to hack decisions. It's a much better way of visualizing it. I want to understand how I can hack my own decisions and other people's decisions as well, because I want to influence them. And not only any decisions, but because I come from the digital world. I've been a Java and a Ruby developer for 12 years, and then I moved more into the leadership space. I want to understand how digital decisions are made. Digital decisions are anything that people make using a digital device, or even when you are making that digital world. We are all digital architects here because we are creating the digital world that people use. So I have a background in computer science. I'm graduated in computer science, but then a few years ago, because I was so much into this decision-making theory, I decided to do a post-grad in psychology. And then in psychology, there was this sub-area, which was the understanding of technology addiction, which is pretty much the understanding of the things that we already know about other substances and why we get addicted to things like cocaine and heroin and gambling. How can we apply the knowledge that the psychology of addiction already acquired to technology? So I became this person that's kind of a merge between computer science and psychology. And then I want to bring a few books for you to understand where the background comes from. These are the three main books in the behavioral economics world. Thinking Fast and Slow, Predictably Irrational, and Nudge are three of the books that really started to make me fall in love with this concept of behavioral economics. And in the digital space, I recently read these three books that helped me put together this presentation. Building a Second Brain from Tiago Forte, A World Without Email, which might sound like a joke, but has anyone tried A World Without Email? And Make Time from Jake Knapp and John, I can't pronounce his last name, Zeratsky. Yeah, so Jake is the author of Design Sprint as well, so he's well known for that. And I quite like the Make Time book because we all have 24 hours, right? So how can we spend that time in a way that we can prioritize the best things that we can do? If you go to Google right now and you search for where to eat in Brisbane, you will get about 112 million results. 9 in 10 people click on a result from the first page. Some people actually say that if you kill someone and you want to hide their body, just put them on page 2 of Google, because nobody goes there. So what is this? Did you make that decision, or did Google make that decision for you? We've delegated that decision making. This is a nudge. So this is Google nudging us to making a decision. A nudge is pretty much something that puts you in the position of making one decision compared to the other. Nothing stops you from going to page 9 of the Google results, but it turns out that less than 90% of the people do it. It's unbelievable. Remember the little boy from The Sixth Sense who saw dead people? So when I read the nudge book and I started to understand what nudges were, I just started seeing nudges everywhere. I just see the nudges everywhere. And I hope you leave this talk seeing nudges as well, because that makes you more conscious. When you're on Netflix watching a TV show, and then the second episode just plays automatically because there is a feature called autoplay, this is a nudge. It touches into a bias that we have that's called status quo bias. We are more likely to keep doing what we're doing than to put effort into stop doing what we were doing. So if you had to actually click on something to keep watching, it would be more likely that you would watch like 20 episodes of a TV show all at once. A streak is another nudge. It's another digital nudge. A streak is pretty much something that many applications use, and one of the first ones that used was Snapchat, and it gives you a number every time you do something for one consecutive day. So on Snapchat, if you have a streak of 226, it means you've been talking to that person for 226 days, and you haven't spent one single day without talking to them. Because if you do, you lose that. And we don't like losing things, right? There is this other bias called loss aversion. We hate losing things. So streaks are nudges too. You see, you just keep seeing nudges everywhere. And if you went to Felina's presentation yesterday, the keynote, she spoke about Haiti, which is a great way of teaching kids how to program. And the levels that she has are also nudges, because you are on level 3 and you want to go to level 4, and that's a nudge too. So as you can see, nudge is a great theory. It comes from Cass Sunstein and Richard Thaler. Thaler actually got the Nobel Prize in 2017 because of this theory, and it just amazes me so much how that influences pretty much everything that we do. They define nudges as small and powerful interventions in the environments where we make decisions. So up to the point where a few years ago I published my first book called Digital Nudge, and that's why my name now is Fabio Nudge. Because there's a lot of Fabios in Brazil, and here in Australia, I know you only have the one. I can't believe it's not Pereira Fabio. But in Brazil, there's way too many. My last name is too common, so Fabio Nudge was a way to refer as, oh, which Fabio? Fabio Nudge, right? Which is funny, because I went back to Brazil, and then I went to give it this talk, and then I was calling it Digital Nudge, and this person came to me, and they were like, oh, I get it now, what's a nudge? Because I thought you were going to talk about nudes. And they took that photo, and that wasn't what I was going to talk about. And another question I had in one of the talks I gave was, hey Fabio, if I know about all these psychological techniques, can I manipulate people? And I said, yes. And they were like, okay, teach me then. And it reminded me of this TV show on Netflix here.
My name is Derren Brown, and the question we're considering is simple. Can we be manipulated through social pressure to commit murder?
70 people coming in here. They can't see this. Take them by the knees.
70 actors will be playing out a meticulously planned and rehearsed scenario to manipulate this man, who has no idea he's being filmed.
Come on, guys, what are we gonna do? He's a millionaire. He's gonna make sure you go to jail.
This show is about how readily we hand over authorship of our lives every day.
Just give him one big push.
Can social compliance be used to make someone push a living, breathing human being to their death? Welcome to the push.
I've been thinking about putting together something for this talk where I go like, welcome to the nudge. But where do we draw the line between what's a nudge and what's a push? Thaler actually says on his book that a nudge, for it to be called a nudge, you need to be able to have the option of not doing what the nudge is nudging you to do. Right? So no one is forcing you to keep watching. You always have the ability to click and stop watching. And I quite like as well the concept of the two types of influences that Nir Eyal, the author of the book Hooked, he mentions on his book that there are two types of influences. And I met Nir and actually ended up helping translate his book to Portuguese and wrote the foreword of the book, because I quite like to understand what is it that makes us hooked to something. So he created this concept of the hook model, right, which is a trigger, action, variable reward, and an investment that actually helps build habit-forming products. But where do you draw the line between a habit and an addiction? It's very hard, right? I quite like this definition, which is there are two types of influence. One is persuasion, that is influencing people to do what they want and what they need. And coercion is influencing people to do what they don't want and what they don't need. So it is not up to the person who's influencing, it's up to the user to understand what is it that you need. And that's why I started going more in the direction of user experience and user research and design thinking. Because when we're building a product, we need to understand what are the user's needs before building something that's completely useless, or even building something that will force them or nudge them into doing something that they don't need. So Snapchat had the streaks, and this is a quote from someone who used Snapchat streaks. They said, "I hate streaks because it forces you to be on your phone every day. There's a lot of obligation to continue. So if you lose your streak, it's like the world's over." So is it influencing something that they want and that they need? No, but they're doing it anyways. So in my point of view, it's not about the nudge itself, it's about how it's used. So streaks can be used on Snapchat to cause that kind of reaction, but I quite like the way streaks are used on Duolingo, which is a tool for you to learn languages, where you set a daily goal, and if you want to learn a new language, then you can keep learning it and increasing your streaks. In fact, I quite like this TED talk from Luis, the founder of Duolingo. It's from April this year, where he mentioned streaks.
If you really want to deliver education to everyone, not only do you have to make it accessible, but also you have to make it so that people want to actually learn. And with Duolingo, we've been able to do this. And at the highest level, the way we've done this is by making the broccoli taste like dessert. I'll say it another way. What we've done is that we've used the same psychological techniques that apps like Instagram, TikTok, or mobile games use to keep people engaged, but in this case, we use them to keep people engaged, but with education. Let me give you some examples of these techniques. One of the most powerful ones is the notion of a streak. What a streak is just a counter that measures the number of days that you've used the product consecutively. You just take that number, you put it very prominently in your product, and then people come back every day. And the reason people come back every day is because, well, if they don't come back, that number resets to 0.
So it's interesting, right? You can use one of those nudges to either nudge people into talking to someone every day or to learn a new language. Another number I want to bring here is 241 million. So 241 million is the number of emails sent in 1 minute on the internet. It's a lot of information, right? This is an infographic that I've been following for quite some time. It's called the Internet Minute. It shows what happens on the internet in 60 seconds. And I can tell you, I've been following it for a few years now, since 2016, and it only gets worse. There's only more and more information being produced. In one of those graphs, it showed that if you wanted to watch every YouTube video that gets published on YouTube, you would have to multiply your time by 18,000. So there is no way we cannot consume everything that gets produced. And it's not just about the things that are on our timelines and Instagram and LinkedIn. It's also things like, I started learning some AI tools recently, and I was like, okay, so ChatGPT, Hugging Face, and then this is the number of tools that I was presented with. How do we choose from all those tools? I went to the MIT in 2019, which is a bit of a dream for me, and then they have this hydrant. And they say, if you try to consume all the information that's produced by the MIT, it's almost like you're trying to drink from a water hydrant. And this is how I felt at that time, right? And this is how I feel right now with the amount of information that we have in the world. It's way too much information. And not just the information we have, we try to do multiple things all at once, and we think we are being productive by doing context switching, trying to do 3, 4, 5 things all at once. 28%, according to research, is the amount of our day that we totally waste, on average actually, some people are actually more than 28%, because of interruptions and notifications. So focus is quite important, because otherwise you're just throwing away 28% of your day.
So a decade ago, we shifted our attention at work every 3 minutes. Now we do it every 45 seconds, and we do it all day long. The average person checks email 74 times a day and switches tasks on their computer 566 times a day.
I wonder what she means by the average person 74 times a day. If you get that number and you go like, do I check more or less than 74 times a day? So what I want to bring here is a lot of tools that I've come up with, according to all those books, to help information consumption and also so we can be more productive. And you might be thinking, right, that doesn't happen to me. That's just like these average people that actually consume a lot of information and do a lot of context switching. But then everyone that tells me that, when I sit next to their machine, this is how many tabs they have open. It's pretty much like that. And speaking of broccoli and dessert, like Luis, the founder of Duolingo, mentioned, I want us to run a thought experiment here. And if I only had one slide for this talk, this would be the slide. What if we looked at information as food? Right? And in my post-graduation, we started looking at technology and technology addiction in a way that would compare technology with things like cocaine and heroin. And we would say, but the way we treat heroin addicts, it's very different from how we should be treating technology addiction. Because, of course, for things like that, you need to move them totally away from the thing that they're addicted to. Whereas technology, it's impossible for us to live in a world now without technology. It's pretty much impossible. So that's why I like to compare it with food, because there is no way we can live without food, unless there's any robots in the room. So what I want to say here is, what if we look at information as food? And I know there is one Brazilian here, José Valim, my friend. You would know what that word means, because we're Brazilian. So in Brazilian, we like this thing called rodízio. Rodízio is a place where you go where there's a lot of food, right? They actually literally bring like swords of food to your table. So in order to prioritize the amount of food that you will have, you need to choose whether you want to have the rump steak or the rice and the mashed potatoes. So I guess we've learned in an environment where we have to learn how to prioritize food. That's probably why I like this analogy. But I guess we all know how to prioritize food. This is not your breakfast of your everyday, right? You don't wake up and you don't say like, oh, what I'm gonna eat for breakfast. There is common knowledge about what is it that we eat and why we eat the things we eat. And also there is a whole like nutritionist concept, right, of a profession of people who actually understand and scientifically learn about what is good and what is bad for you. But I believe that for information, that doesn't exist. We are still in the early days of understanding what's good and what's bad for us. So we just end up consuming anything because there is no rule, like there is no guideline. And what I want to do with this infobesity concept is actually bring some guidelines so that we know what's good and what's bad. But at the end of the day, it's not about me, it's about you. Just like I said, it's about the user. The user needs to understand what is it that's good and bad for you. But I want to present you with a few tools and practices that helped me. One of the things I want to bring here is the concept of scarcity and abundance. So Anna Lembke, she says that as a result of this new world that we live in, we've transformed the world from a place of scarcity to a place of overwhelming abundance. And it's actually one of the reasons why we tend to consume way too much, because our brains are wired to the point where scarcity was the reality. So the savannah days, when if you found, let's say, a bit of food, like a fruit, then you would go like, wow, I am surviving because of this food. Right? So there wasn't an abundance of information and food that we have right now. So we still behave in a way as if there were scarcity of things. Anna Lembke is the author of the book Dopamine Nation, which is a book I quite like to understand what dopamine means. Dopamine is the reward substance in your brain. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It depends on how you get the dopamine from. I like to show that because it shows good sources of dopamine, and I would say dangerous sources of dopamine. So good ones are like reading, sunlight, exercising, pursuing goals. And dangerous ones are TV, drugs, alcohol. Next time, I think I'm going to move caffeine to the other column. Who's with me? Who would agree? So understanding the good sources of dopamine and the bad sources of dopamine and being aware of this in your body is one of the best tools to fight infobesity. The other thing, which is the simplest thing that you can do, is track your screen time. Who here knows your screen time from the last week? Average screen time. Okay. Research shows that when you think about how much is your screen time and you look at it, people are usually surprised because they underestimate. They always think it's less. And the other good thing as well to look is the number of your pickups, right? So how many times do you pick up your phone? Because sometimes we pick up the phone, we don't even know why, but there is this instinct of just picking up the phone. And if you want to know like what are the global numbers, like global average screen time is 6 hours and 58 minutes, and Australia average is 5 hours and 30 minutes. Good on you. But it's not about just the screen time, because we could be on screen, but we could be doing things that are good for us. So I don't think screen time is the best metric, but it's a metric. I like the Center for Humane Technology, which is an institute founded by Tristan Harris. He left Google, and he calls himself the design ethicist, that actually raised a lot of awareness inside Google about why they were doing what they were doing. And then they mapped at the Center for Humane Technology the apps that make you happy and the apps that actually make you regret. So I would say, take some time, look at the apps that you've been using, and you are the best person to ask yourself, is this something that I regret, or is this something that I used because I really wanted to? But I don't think we really need research to show that Headspace is better than Candy Crush. The other tool that I want to bring here, and it's based on a neuroscience experiment that showed that people in meetings, right? So the brain on top is people that went to meetings with no breaks, right? So meeting 1, meeting 2, meeting 3, and meeting 4, no breaks. People on the bottom are people who actually took small breaks between the meetings, 5 to 10 minutes breaks. You don't have to be a neuroscientist to understand what red and blue means, but I can just say that blue is good and red is bad. Red is a substance called cortisol, which is the substance of stress. So just by taking a small break, a 5-minute break between meetings, will keep you running and your brain battery will be better at the end of the day. At Red Hat, the company I work for, we've developed a tool called cognitive loadometer, so that we would measure team cognitive load. Team cognitive load is something that has existed for a while, but now it's been recently really looked at because of the concept of team topologies, where Manuel and Matthew, they actually managed the concept of a team cognitive load, and not just measuring individual cognitive load, but the team cognitive load. And this is a 6-month metrics from team cognitive load. And it's not about actually understanding the individual cognitive load, but it's understanding the trends. And if the team is getting overloaded, then we can actually bring that to a retrospective and have a conversation about what can we do about that overload. So I would definitely recommend, this is totally open, just look for cognitive loadometer and feel free to use it. And I come from the agile world, right? I worked for ThoughtWorks for 10 years. And one of the things we do a lot in the agile space, and a lot of people have the misconception that being agile is being faster, but it's not. It's about prioritization. Sometimes it's about doing less, but it's about doing the right things. So prioritization tools like Moscow, the must, should, coulds, and won'ts, are things that we can also use for the information that we are consuming. Another concept I quite like that we do a lot in Agile, especially Lean, is to change the mode of pushing new features and things that come to a team into a pull system. So I totally recommend doing that with all the information that arrives to you as well. So if you're feeling like bombarded with a bunch of information at the moment that's arriving in your inbox, email, Git pull requests, and everything that's coming to you, just go from a push system into a pull system. Let people push all the information that they can and let that arrive to you at a certain moment on your phone and on your laptop. And that can happen, right? Because we have no control over the information that is being pushed. But the way you consume that information is within a pull system. Remember the all-you-can-eat place, the barbecue place in Brazil, where you are at the place where you have everything, but you are the one who can pull that information and decide what you want to eat. This was my inbox at a point in time. It had 15,337 unread emails. And then I looked at that and I was like, what am I supposed to do? What if there is one email in that 15,000 emails that I actually should have read and I didn't? The problem with email, and not just email, but information in general, it's because it's not labeled or sorted in a way that tells us what are the most important ones and the ones that if we miss, it's okay. And even worse, the way we consume information is we do it by time, which is horrible, because we're delegating to time. If you received an email now and if you received an email 3 hours ago, why is it that the email you just received now is better or it's more suitable for you to read than the one you received 3 hours ago? So consuming information and giving time as the prioritization criteria that will tell you what to consume is really bad. So I read this email, which was very important, right? The YOW team sent that email, YOW Brisbane is tomorrow. That was 2 days ago, because it started yesterday. But how did I get to that email? And I want to walk you through a little bit of my steps in terms of how I get to that. You could decide to read all your unread emails, right? So you can say, yeah, is unread, and then it's a bunch of emails. As you can see, like 1 to 100 of many, so many pages of unread emails that I have. A method called inbox zero says that you should not prioritize emails by the unread emails. It talks about the concept of the inbox and the archive. So you can go, okay, let me read everything that's on my inbox. But not just the inbox. I have a label called action must. And I also star emails. So by having that filter of is unread, is inbox, action must, and is starred, just give me one email. That is the email that I can't miss at that point in time. And what I usually do is when I find that like cool filter, I actually save it as a bookmark, so I don't have to go and type that all again. And then you can just save that as a bookmark, and when you want to read all your inbox starred action must emails, you can just click on that bookmark and it'll give that to you. But in order for me to have that email, you need to label your emails in a way where it will actually, how does it know that that email from YOW is an email that requires an action? On the second brain book, Tiago Forte talks a lot about the fact that we should not be sorting information by the source, but we should be sorting it by how actionable it is. That's why I actually have those labels of action must. Something I must see. If I don't see that email, I'll have a problem. And I have more than 350 smart filters on my Gmail to allow me to only read the emails I really need to. Hopefully, I won't need to get to that point of those read emails that I don't even need to, but I can't miss those emails that are in the bottom. And I can't just delegate that to time. So I also want to show a little bit of my filters, because a lot of people say, can you show me? And even can you share if you want? I can send that to you. I can export as an XML file and send that to you. All the hundreds of filters I have on my Gmail, and then I have the YOW filter as well, right? Because when I signed up for YOW and I was invited to come and speak, I was like, okay, every email that arrives from YOW is important. So I'm going to label that as, so if the email matches YOW, then do this. Apply the label action must, mark it as important, and categorize as primary. So by doing that, I just taught Gmail of what's important to me. And I can't just say that's important to you as well. YOW could be something that you don't value and it's not important. So it's learning about labeling the information that arrives to you that helps you consume what you really need to consume. Because there is a lot of information that arrives to us, and we have no control over the source, the producer of that information. But we do have control over a few things. We cannot control how the information is produced, but we can control how the information is consumed. And this is what I call the method of information diet. It's about prioritizing what you really need to consume, and green, for me at least, are the emails that are to me and that are actionable, that require an action from my side. That's definitely something that I cannot miss. And also snoozing emails, labeling emails, skipping in inboxes, and creating filters are things that you do have control over. And I actually hope that one day we'll have all the information that we get trained in a large language model. So instead of having to create all those filters, I can actually ask some artificial intelligence and say, hey, is there any email that requires action from my side on my inbox? So I have this dream that very soon we'll have all the information that arrives to us be trained into a large language model, and that we can just speak to it instead of having to go through that structured way of creating those filters. And another tool that I want to show for people who have that problem, and I am one of those people, usually we say we create solutions for things that we suffer from, and I definitely suffer from that. I was preparing this presentation, and then I started to see that the number of open tabs was just growing on my laptop. And I was like, okay, I have email open, and then I'm having like the topics I want to talk about, and I'm doing research on like which videos I want to use. And one feature I quite like, it's this new feature from Chrome where you can group tabs. And of course, this is just one feature, like if you don't use Chrome, it's okay. But it's not about the feature of grouping tabs. It's about the concept of filtering information. And if you have 20 tabs open, at that particular moment, you're not really using those 20 tabs. I arrived in Brisbane, and I really like stand-up comedy, so I was also looking for comedy in Brisbane. But do you see that I have all the other tabs grouped, and I only have the tab that I'm looking for stand-up comedy here open with only 2 tabs? So at that point in time, those 2 tabs are actually spending my cognitive load. All the other tabs are grouped. And when I decide to go back and actually work on the presentation again, I can open and expand and collapse the tab grouping. And you can take that to any level, to anything that you're working. If you're developing, how many files do you keep open, right? If you have, like, if you're running a test and a class, you could just have those 2 files open, and you can collapse everything else, because everything that's open consumes attention, and attention is a very expensive resource. The other thing that I also do, and it's one of the things that productivity gurus also mention, is having a proactive agenda, a proactive schedule. Pretty much adding to your calendar, however you do, if it's Google Calendar or even sticky notes on the wall, but putting on the schedule the things that you do want to do, because you're giving a signal to your future self. A very easy way to do that is a daily meeting. So if you have a daily meeting, and it's usually every day, so you don't have to think, today, do I have a daily meeting today? It's daily, so it's by default, it happens every day. And here you have a daily meeting at 10 a.m. every day. But it's not just that, you can also put things that you want to do, like having lunch. How many people go like, oh, I don't have time for lunch today. I put lunch on my agenda. And you can think, okay, we can do that at the individual level, but we can also do that at the corporate level. Right? So Red Hat Latin America has over 1,000 people, and Juliana Ihara is the head of communications at Red Hat Latin America. And she realized that there was way too much information being produced, but that information wasn't being consumed as much, because the open rate of all those emails that got produced, they were tracking all the open rates, and they were very low. So Juliana amazingly came up with this initiative called Communication Economy, where she tried to analyze the PDC cycle of all the information that happened in the entire Latin America. And then she analyzed the production, distribution, and consumption. And an interesting result of that work was that instead of sending 600 emails per month, which was all the emails that got sent, not just from, like, if I send Chris an email, not that kind of email, but corporate emails with information that's relevant for everyone in that particular region. It was 600 emails per month, about 20 emails a day. And then what she did was she came up with this concept of a data and information curation team. And instead of just broadcasting everything to everyone, we would say, hey, can we have this in the next newsletter? And just by having that, there were like 2 main newsletters per month. And the good thing is that the open rate of those newsletters increased to 77%, which means people were really caring about what they were receiving, because instead of receiving 600 emails, they only received 2 emails, and that's why 7 in 10 people actually opened those emails. And why do I call this concept infobesity, right? There is the concept of obesity, and there is a metric called BMI, which is body mass index. And this is a scale that can tell you whether you are suffering from obesity or not. The main reason why I do that is because I suffered from obesity when I was young. And then the way I discovered that was by stepping on a scale and actually understanding my BMI, my body mass index. I still do that nowadays. I actually, let's say, recovered from my obesity problem by doing a lot of things in the last 20 or 20-something years. And I still do that. I step on that scale, which is it's a much more advanced scale that gives not just your weight, but it also gives your the index of bones. It's all the composition of your body, what you have in terms of fat, bones, muscle, and it's a much more advanced scale. But a scale is a simple way that we can discover if we have a problem. So as part of my postgrad, we came up with what I call a digital weight scale, which is actually a tool. It's a very simple tool. It's 20 questions, and you answer those 20 questions, and it gives you a score. And that score can go from 0 to 100, and it's equivalent to the BMI index in the sense that you will have a concept of whether you suffer from infobesity or not. And of course, that's not exact, right? It's not something like, wow, it was 73, so I'm definitely suffering from that. But it gives you awareness. By answering the questions, you go I didn't even know that that was a problem. So for instance, one of the questions is, I wake up in the middle of the night to look at my phone and see if I have notifications. And that question, a lot of people came to me and they were like, I had never thought about that. So after just answering the digital weight scale, they stopped doing that, just by being aware and conscious of the fact that that could be a problem. So what I want to tell you is if you want to scan that, because I'm publishing the book, Infobesity, the first 20 people that actually respond to that and come after the talk at the information spot, you will get a book, right? So feel free to scan it, or at the end, at the last slide, I also have the same QR code. Yeah, you will win a book over there if you scan it. If you don't make it to the first 20 to get to the line, you can go on Amazon and look for Infobesity. And I did that, and Amazon was trying to give me a nudge, and it actually was showing things for InfoBeauty. And then even though I clicked on the Infobesity link, it was like, did you mean InfoBeauty? So that's a problem of coming up with a book that has a name that's not really in the vocabulary, but hopefully it'll be in the vocabulary one day, and hopefully there will be a lot of things around the concept of how to be better at that problem.
Architects of our digital world, stop, be better, because we can be. And we can see that these systems have been designed with intricacy so that companies can keep our attention indefinitely. I don't want to keep crushing these freaking candies. I don't want these alerts to completely command me. I don't care if that panda bear is dancing. Well, maybe. With a hula hoop. Okay, this is fantastic. I have to share this with my 10 friends and 10,000 strangers. Caption, who wants to throw a panda rager? Great, let me go back about my life. For God's sakes, I'm trying to right swipe my wife. Huh. 30 seconds and just 2 Facebook likes. Or is that just 2 for which I've been notified? Let me go back and check inside and see whose likes I tried to hide. They don't show them all, I wonder why. This panda's dancing. And another video plays after automatically. This one of a gopher that stage turns dramatically. It's like my attention is kept systematically raptured by algorithms that know exactly what I want. Or not what I want, just what I'll watch. And the people behind this intelligent design genuinely want to better our lives. But their bonuses just so happen to be tied to keeping time on site exceptionally high. And now even my news apps have been gamified, and what am I, not gonna click that one simple sex tip guaranteed to blow her mind? Wait, where was I, and why have I forgotten to look for that thing I'm supposed to find? And my God, look at the time. It is shocking. But somehow, yes, Netflix, I am still watching. And I know. I should have more self-control. But just to be clear, you just spent $1 million telling me this story designed to cut off at the end, leaving me wanting more. See, of course I want to see what you have in store. See my cursor already waiting there on the screen floor as you tease the next hour in all of its glory. And you'll give it to me, unless I actively abort. See, it seems the decision's already made for me. The countdown clock's moving. There it goes. 5, 4, 3. I need to sleep. But you made me want this more. This is not what I consciously signed up for when I hit play on one episode 6 hours ago. Architects of our digital world, you have more data, information, and control over our attention, the tools to tweak our emotions so we'll return to your experience. But is that what you should do? Or should you build digital tools so advanced they can actually enhance the world outside the device in our hands? Can you add so much value that it lets us put our phones back in our pants as fast as we possibly can? Not time-sucking, time-giving innovation. That's what it means to be truly technologically advanced. The future is not all screens. It's humanity enhanced.
That video was produced by the concept of Time Well Spent, which is an institute that eventually became the Center for Humane Technology. That's Adam Stossel. He was part of that institute, and I quite like that video. It's kind of a summary of the whole thing. And a lot of people ask me at the end of this, okay, so where can I start? Like, what are the next steps, and what now? What should I do? Because now you've opened my eyes to so many things, and I'm now aware and conscious of so much, so what can I do? I would say those first 2 steps you've already taken, which is the step on the scale, which is a scale you scanned, and you're going to do that. And the second one is to look at information as food. But I would also say you can design digital nudges at your company, hopefully the good ones, not the ones that will nudge people into doing what they don't want and what they don't need. Taking small breaks, as you saw, is something that helps you recharge your brain. Categorize information that arrives to you on actionability, not just on the source of the information, but on what kind of action you can take on that information. Embrace JOMO. So JOMO is a term that is the joy of missing out. It actually comes from the FOMO. So instead of fear of missing out, enjoy the joy of missing out. Embrace JOMO. And take action, because I really want you to avoid what I'm calling PP. So PP is, I saw recently this TEDx talk, and this woman was talking about, you know, when you watch a lot of things, you come to this talk, and then you leave that room, and you don't take any action. So it's about watching a lot more than doing, and she called it productivity porn. Right? So avoid that. Like, avoid just watching a lot of things and not really putting it in practice. Just take action. Do what needs to be done. Because I actually want this talk to like open your eyes and make you more conscious about all these nudges that are around us. Not just because I want to nudge you into anything, but I want you to be able to define what's good and what's bad for you. I'm not the one who's going to say that. All I can say here is that I live an info-fitness life, and that has worked for me. It has worked for me because now I have more time to do what I want and what I need, because I know how to prioritize the things. But it could be that that doesn't work for you. And also, we've been having a lot of conversations about artificial intelligence in this company. And I want to finish by saying that I don't think that artificial intelligence will replace anyone's jobs and anyone in this room. It will bring us back to our humanity, right? So try to think, what does it mean to be human to you? And then just be more productive on the things that you really have to do, so you have the time to do the things that you really want to. Thank you very much.